welcome back to the Future Print Leaders Summit. I'm joined by Bill CORTELYOU, who is the President and CEO of Phoseon Technology. And Bill is dialing in from Oregon, is that right? Whereabouts exactly are you, Bill?
Yes, we're in Hillsboro, Oregon, which is about a 25-minute drive west of downtown Portland.
Fantastic. So you might win our furthest away presenter. I'm not sure. We've got somebody from Taiwan. I'd need to check on Google Maps. But thank you for joining us for this. We're delighted to have Phoseon as a strategic partner for Futureprint, and for you joining us today to give us your story. Bill joined Phoseon, I believe, in 2007, and I've just discovered he's a Californian. He has a degree in physics from San Francisco State University, and he's been brought up in and around the kind of Silicon Valley culture of innovation and entrepreneurialism. He's also one of the early investors, I believe, with Phoseon Technology, and has a history of working within the fields of integrated microelectronics and so on and so forth. So has a lot of experience in terms of technology innovation. So I'm going to hand over the reins to you so you can give us your story, and we'll have a little couple of questions at the end. So
Great.
Over to you, Bill.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Really appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me to Futureprint CEO Summit. I'll go ahead and switch to the presentation here, and we'll get started. Okay, well, again, thanks for inviting me. We'll talk about certainly the pandemic. We're kind of at the tail end of it, hopefully, and we'll talk a little bit about what new technology entails, and whether it's fun or frightening. It doesn't really matter if you're a small business or a big business. Technology is part of our life, and innovation is a big part of printing, whether it's inkjet or flexographic. It's hugely important. So let me start with a little background on Phoseon Technology. We started in 2002 with UV LEDs. It was a very new technology. It was rather uniquely available to us at the time. And we looked at four business segments, and we studied them quite extensively: disinfection, lithography, inspection, and curing. And Phoseon, in fact, was the traditional founders in a garage. So there were actually three founders, and as a kind of a chief technologist, another technologist, and a general practitioner who did the operations and the finance and so forth. And just like Hewlett-Packard many years ago, in the early 40s, late 40s rather, started in a garage that happens to be very close to where I was born in Palo Alto, California. But it's true. People start companies in the garage and then eventually find success and grow from there. So for us, out of the four areas, we found that curing was an area that we could add value. And I say curing has been the success so far, right? Because you always want to leave an open avenue for the future, right? No one can really predict the future. And in fact, we've circled back to disinfection now. We have a life sciences business. As we happen to call it, inactivation is used more broadly in life sciences. But with the UVC, we can now inactivate pathogens such as COVID-19, and we're actually involved in specifically test kit manufacturing and using the UVC light to make sure that the test kits are pure and operate properly. So in terms of curing, we're now 18 years in business. It took us obviously a little while to ramp up and get through many of the challenges, but we've sold to date over 150,000 curing lamps worldwide. And most of those lamps are in operation today. We have factories around the world for end users. Those lamps are running, producing various materials from fiber optics to flat panel displays. We sell into OEM printer business. Every time a graphics printer, for example, is sold, then two lamps go with that. So Phoseon has been very successful in the curing business. But we also continually invest in the future, and that's part of the message. The pandemic has been a massive impact to all of us, but the smart people and the people with capability have invested through the pandemic. I know a number of examples where they actually said that they were more effective and more efficient doing their R&D through the pandemic than without it, because there was sort of a total focus and a sense of purpose. So we'll go ahead and take a look at a video. This is a relatively short video, but it gives you a tour of Phoseon Technologies headquarters and manufacturing facility here in Oregon. And so go ahead and take a look, and when we're finished, we'll get back to the presentation.
Welcome to Phoseon Technology, where UV LED curing was invented. By maximizing UV energy output of various wavelength diodes, Phoseon provides innovative light solutions for both the UV curing and life science markets. Our eco-friendly, patented technology ensures you have proven, reliable LED light sources built right here in Hillsboro, Oregon.
With over 300 worldwide patents, Phoseon has a reputation for technological innovation, quality, and reliability.
Reliability is at our core. We know that when our products succeed, our customers are able to produce their goods on time and on budget. Our extensive reliability testing includes highly accelerated life testing, temperature and vibration assessments to ensure products are rugged and reliable in even the harshest environments.
Our workforce is committed to ensuring the quality of our products. After manufacture, products are sent through a semiconductor-based burn-in process, then packaged and delivered to customers.
Our patented semiconductor light matrix technology uses LEDs, arrays, optics, and cooling to create a unique high-performance solution. Our proprietary and patented techniques include pairing individual diodes with thermal management to optimize LED characteristics with other system components, all to maximize the total UV energy. To ensure the quality of Phoseon's products, our quality assurance team uses a variety of tools to conduct first article and sample inspections on incoming components. We use our coordinate measuring machine for dimensional inspections and our X-ray machine to validate Phoseon's SLMs and printed circuit boards. All finished goods go through a final inspection before shipping out to our customers.
Phoseon has more than 50 units on long-term live tests at any time. These tests include stressing products using various duty cycles, high temperature, and reduced airflow situations. Assured reliability continues with our company's ISO certification. We continually improve our process to ensure we design and build your products with zero defects.
Over the last decade, Phoseon has worked closely with our customers to expand the boundaries of UV LED technology, and with your help, we will continue to meet next generation standards of industry. Our eco-friendly solid-state technology answers today's production demands and tomorrow's eco standards.
As we approach our 20th year in business, Phoseon will continue to push innovation with our customers' best interests in mind. Come with us for 20 more years of everlasting light.
Okay, thank you for taking a look at that. I hope it was interesting. And kind of the theme, of course, is around the pandemic, but I also want to look at some of Phoseon's learnings going from a startup to contributing successful company. And I think this is not just applicable to startups, and it's not applicable to good times or bad times. In past periods of stress, whether it was the banking crisis or the sort of the dot-com bubble and bust, those were big shifts in normal business, and they were times where people started companies and were successful. And with the pandemic, we have to take a fresh look at things and understand what are the needs. So when you start something new, it's is it fun or is it frightening? Well, it's actually both, and there's your emotions are kind of magnified, and it's obviously when things go well and you have a breakthrough, it's fun. It's really fun. And then if there's a setback, and there are always lots of setbacks, then that's a little bit frightening. So whether it's pandemic or not, there's fundamentals to success And there's ways that, if you don't follow the successful path, they'll cause you to fail as well. So what are my learnings, my takeaway from Phoseon experience? Well, you have to solve a problem, right? You have to understand with either your partners, your customers, or yourself, what is the problem? What is the unmet need that you're trying to fill? And then you need to devote all of your energy to solving that problem. That's the nature of a startup, is you sort of ignore everything else, and this problem you're working to solve, and that's you and your team and your partners, and if you have customers, then you work very closely with them. See, the other fundamental is that you need to work with early adopters. And an early adopter is someone that's not afraid of failure, that isn't too worried if you have some bugs in your product, but they're interested in the promise of the technology. I mean, the folks that are involved in inkjet can go back many years and look at all the progress we've made. And the early adopters of inkjet, they weren't worried about the bugs and the problems. They saw the promise, they saw the future. If you work with someone that's not an early adopter, they'll be interested in your technology, they'll be interested in your project, but it won't move forward. And it may be kind of a false hope that you think they're going to move forward, and they just never do. So that's probably one of the most important aspects. Then on your team is you need people that are willing to put in the effort and the time and take the risk, and there's no guarantee of reward or success, but they don't really think about that. They just think about solving this problem. So ways to fail, and again, this could be a project within a well-established major company. It could be in good times, it could be in bad times, it could be in the middle of the pandemic. Things like pandemics are, you take a pause and you think, what are we doing? What makes sense? What's the right way to do it? Marcus has this digital conference. I mean, it's outstanding. So Marcus has adapted to this pandemic, and because we still need to communicate, we still need to interact, I still need to understand from the market and the customers what they need. So this is a way to do that. So it's an adaptation of what we traditionally do. So ways to fail. The number one by far is not listening to the market. The key is that the market or your customers want what you're providing, that they love your product. If you love your product, okay, great, but it doesn't matter. You're not buying the product. The market is buying the product. So you got to listen to the market, and you can't really fight it. That could be performance, that could be price, could be longevity or reliability, ease of use. The market will tell you what's needed, but you have to listen. And since you're the birth parent of this project or product, you can't take the view that my child is perfect. You have to listen to the market, and they'll tell you what they need. You need to provide them. You can't have a team that's afraid of failing, right? So I call that risk adverse. If they fear failure, then they're not going to venture out. They're not going to be good explorers. And you need someone that's willing to explore. And where you end up will probably not be what you envisioned when you started the journey, right? So you need people that are adaptable and not afraid of failure. And you can't run out of fuel either. So you need a certain amount of funds or resources to get where you want to go, but you don't want to gain all the resources to get to the end, right? Let's use battery power, right? We're going through the early phase of electrification. I think that's an irreversible trend. So if you need to go somewhere, and let's say it's competitive, you need to get there. You want to get there before the other folks. Then you need to charge your battery, but you don't want to charge it to 100%. As you get to 70 or 80, then it slows down. It takes a long time to get to 100%. So you want to charge enough to get to the next milestone, and maybe a little bit for safety, right? And that's true whether the project is internal or external. In the pandemic, there's a lot of companies under stress financially, and so you want to get to the milestone, to the place that you can show some results and ask for some more money. So that's how it's done in the venture capital world. The venture capital looks at your business plan and says, you know, what are your milestones? How much do you need to get to your milestones? And don't worry, you'll get more money later. So that's a way to ensure success, is to have enough fuel, or if you run out of fuel too early, then you won't get to your milestone. So technology, the pandemic is accelerating technology, and we're doing business in life sciences as well as printing, and we've all seen the news on the vaccine development, and so essentially the vaccine development went from sort of 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in a few seconds comparatively, right? Very, very high performance in less than a year. There's a very interesting story of BioNTech in Germany, where the researchers and the founders of the company were working on a messenger RNA technology, and we're using that to do research on essentially a vaccine for cancer. So on Monday, the founder really became concerned with the virus that originated in China, and it was growing very quickly. So he went to his board of directors and said, look, we need to stop everything. We need to switch and develop a vaccine. We have mRNA technology, and that's ideal to develop a vaccine. And the board of directors told him no. This is sort of on Tuesday. Said, no, you need to stick to what you're doing, and we can't put the company at risk, and you're making good progress in your cancer research. And so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there was a lot of discussions. That the CEO was very heavily committed to working on a vaccine for the COVID-19 virus. And by Saturday, they had come to an agreement and completely switched all of their time and energy and resources towards the vaccine. I happened to know someone at Pfizer. They developed a very close relationship and called her up, and they together they said, okay, we'll go 50-50. A year later, they have a vaccine. So that's an example of a shift, like a pandemic, and then just realizing what you have and what you can do. So in terms of technology, the only constant is change. And in terms of the progress of technology, people always think you're going to do all these great things in a year, right? And it doesn't really happen. You have great plans and you got some of it done, but not all of it. But if you look at it in a decade, it's phenomenal, right? The iPhone came out in 2006. By 2016, you're up to iPhone 7 or 8, and you've got all the apps and the app development, the cloud, and all this stuff's happened. So in 10 years, it's phenomenal. Quick sort of examples from Phoseon. We had developed in the early days, 2004 and 5, what we called the RX20. It was 150 millimeters in diameter, and it cured compact discs. If you remember in the good old days, the compact discs, a lot of programs. If you want an internet browser, if you wanted your TurboTax program, if you wanted any program of any size, it came on a disk. But at that same time, the internet was developing and becoming quite useful, and you could then download your program off the internet. And so the CD market went to zero really quickly. I think from the time that we developed that product, which worked very well to cure CDs, the manufacture CDs, multiple layers with adhesive, was fantastic. But in 3 to 6 months, the market was gone. So we had to be agile and adjust. Then in terms of how does the technology develop over time, one of our early products, RX10, small air-cooled lamp, is a nice little lamp, 0.2 watts per square centimeter. Okay, a little more than 10 years later, we have a comparable product. It's 30 watts per square centimeter. So now we're 150 times more powerful a little over a decade later. So this momentum, this ship called technology is just going to keep going. We might as well embrace it. So my view of the printing industry, we sell the lamps. We deal with a lot of OEMs. We deal with some end users. I haven't talked to a lot of people in the last year. Very little travel. That's why this, the Future Print CEO Summit is great. Certainly going to watch a number of the sessions. We're at the tail end of the COVID-19 pandemic. I listened on the radio this morning, and various places are starting to open up. And, it's fascinating that the human behavior and the government, how that all works out. But it's clearly going in the right direction. It's clearly going pretty quickly, but it's going to be different. So it's up to us as business leaders to understand and to think through and get advice on what's going to happen in 6 months and 12 months and 3 years from now and that sort of thing. And clearly, there's going to be more digital communication. I probably won't, fly to London for a 1-hour meeting, but I might put together, like the good old days, of maybe a 12-day trip or something like that, between Zoom and MS Teams and some of the other methods. The digital communication has been great. Business for Phoseon is surprisingly good. If I give you just a view of what happened in the pandemic, if I say Q1 of last year, so January, February, March, if I say that was 100% that business, the revenue during that period of time, the turnover, then Q2, April, May, June of 2020 was about 62%. So we had a 38% drop in business in one quarter. That's restaurants, cruise ships, they had a lot worse than we did, so we weren't complaining, but that's a shock to the system. Q3, July, August, September, we did turn back up, but not dramatically. We were probably at about 72, 73% of that Q1 business. And then the last quarter of the year, October, November, December, probably 90, 92, 93%, somewhere in there. So if you map that out, make a chart, was a V-covered, recovery, V-shaped recovery, excuse me. So Q1, we're towards the end of Q1, it's 2021, January, February, March, and we're probably 110% of what we were a year ago. So that to me is surprising. I'm not sure what all that means. There could be some inventory recovery there. There's obviously stimulus around the world. It could be some pent up demand. I'm not sure, but business is surprisingly good. What do we see again from our perspective? The LED curing is marching towards 100%. In every application, in inkjet. UV inkjet, it's 100%. It's probably been 99% for a year or two. It's moving forward in flexographic and screen printing and pad printing. It's too beneficial, right? There's too many benefits to stay on the old technology. It's going 100%. There's a lot of industrial applications, coatings, and so forth, and those are all becoming LED pretty quickly. LED lamps get better, easier to use, more powerful, more dose, lots of different selection on the shape and size and so forth. They're becoming sort of digitally connected as well. So what are some of the trends that I see? Printing things, right? And we've all seen 3D printing and that sort of thing. That'll continue to grow, and 2.5D for graphics, right? So there's graphics that can have texture, and there's labels that can have many different effects, and after a while it's 2.5D, not 2D. Printing on things, coding, marking, decorating, rather than printing a label or a card and then attaching that to a product, just print directly on the product. I think that trend's been intact for many years. Labels and packaging remains very strong. Even in the pandemic, there probably was an upset in April, May, and June because people couldn't go to work. People were extremely uncertain. But very quickly, the Flexo business specifically looked very strong, and that trend continues. I'm always interested in the Amazon effect. From the malls and the shopping centers and a lot of the point of purchase printing that was done, shifting to Amazon. But the product that's inside the box is still labeled, or if you go to a warehouse store, it's all labeled. It's all packaged. That packaging and labeling today is very sophisticated. There's a lot of information. The resolution has to be phenomenal. It has to look good and be appealing. So that business continues to be strong. I think it'll continue for the future. And the other thing that I noticed is in the last year or so, this idea of sustainability has become very real, very important, and that's a good thing. It's surprising to me because we've been pushing it at Phoseon for 15 years. Because if you look at an LED operation versus the legacy technology, we do the same work, the same job for less than half the power consumed. So we've been touting that for many, many years, but people, they were interested, they thought it was good, but they wouldn't buy based on that. And now that I look back on it, what it means to me is that they weren't willing to take what they perceived to be a risk. They weren't an early adopter, and they didn't want to move forward in that fashion. But now that the technology's proven, they want to really expand it, and they really want to push and communicate this, they're being sustainable. So, we see that in the flexographic printing, particularly the converters that work for the big brands. The big brand wants to know that you're saving energy and you're reducing your waste, and they literally want to know how much CO2 that you've eliminated. And we actually now have calculators, and we can communicate. And if we have a customer that's interested in converting a factory from, say, a mercury arc lamp situation to LED, we can immediately calculate the CO2 reduction for that factory. So Phoseon today and into the future, our business traditionally has been strongest in printing, coatings, and adhesives. We're doing more work in industrial applications. Again, you can apply either a coating or a graphics or something directly to industrial item. Don't need to put it on a substrate and then attach that substrate to the item. There's more work to be done in life sciences, and these are some of the areas that we're in: chromatography, decontamination, disinfection. Photochemistry is a new area for us. There's a lot of photochemical processing to produce various materials where they need the light energy to make the reaction move forward. I think LED is very nicely suited for that, and things that microscopy, fluorescence microscopy, used in drug discovery and development. So another thing to touch on is will be more important moving forward, and the pandemic has shown a light on this, which is there's going to be an increase in automation, right? I mean, we all want to have jobs, we all want to work hard, but automation is to replace repetitive things that you don't really need a human to do. And for example, we have lamps in a number of what we call dark factories. So the factory might be producing, let's say, OLED panels for as an example, and the factory has no people in it. It's all fully automated. Of course, it's monitored, and particularly in Europe, the concept of Factory 4.0 is the convergence of digital technologies and manufacturing processes. Could be automotive, could be a number of things where you monitor and look for any deviations of the process. So process control, you gather the data. Even in converting, if you're converting labels for, say, pharmaceuticals or health and beauty, your customer may want to see that the data on the curing, the intensity of the lamps, make sure that everything is fully cured. LED is very stable and predictable, and we can gather that data. Internet of Things, predictive maintenance. These are all things that due to the pandemic are going to be, significantly more important in 2022 than they were in 2019. So with a summary in terms of innovation, And my basic point is that pandemic doesn't slow innovation; it actually accelerates innovation. So you need to find some need that's unmet. What does your customer need? What does your partner need? What do you need? What have you found that doesn't work? And many inventors were people that just try to solve their own problem. They realized they were one of many, and promoted that solution, raised money, and moved forward. So you need to solve a problem. You need to be creative in how do you solve that, which means you have an idea and a direction. You don't have to have it all figured out. In fact, you'll have sort of none of it figured out, and you'll launch into it. But you're not afraid or adverse to risk, right? You're willing to take risk. The other thing that's hugely important is there's massive technology trends, right? And if you look at the last 20 years, data storage, I talked about the CD-ROM. Okay, I haven't seen one in years. My computer, there's no place to put a CD-ROM, right? So that data storage is getting cheaper. It's on board. 5G is rolling out pretty significantly. The cloud is kind of everywhere. Apps are everywhere. Easy to use on your phone. So your solution or your project, again, big company or small, it doesn't matter. Materials, manufacturing, OEMs. You have to really be aware of these trends, and I would say, ride the trend forward, right? Don't fight the trend. That's critically important. And as Marcus said, I'm from the Silicon Valley. I worked in the chip industry. We had companies like Fairchild, and Intel, and Advanced Micro Devices where I worked, and one of the top technologists was I think my boss's boss, and he would ask me about a problem I was working on. That problem put the company at risk, and I was working very hard on it. He'd ask me questions, and it was very nice. He was a phenomenal technologist, and at the end he said, "Well, work really hard on that, but if it doesn't work, then try the opposite." I thought, well, that's funny. I would think you just keep working harder and harder. And what he was trying to say is sometimes you just go in the wrong direction, and you're so close to the problem you don't see it. So that's been great advice. And we're on the tail end of the pandemic. The vaccines are phenomenally successful and effective. This time next year, we have to look. What does that mean? What does it mean for print? What does it mean for materials? What does it mean for sporting events, or the markets that we go on? What's the new normal? So have fun, prosper, enjoy it, and life is short. So thank you very much. And Marcus, would you like to chat a little bit?
Sure. Thank you. Thanks so much for that, Bill. Well, we've got a little bit of time for some questions there, and there's some really useful takeaways, I think, from the presentation. I really like the fact that you've talked headline solve a problem. It's so incredibly basic, isn't it? But actually, it's not. So often and so frequently, people don't grasp that actually the essence of entrepreneurialism is solving a problem and unmet need. I also like the fact that you, after saying initially as a business, had a really good solution to a problem that was curing CD-ROMs, and then all of a sudden the market disappeared. So which I'm sure you didn't see the funny side at the time, but it challenged you to be agile, like you said. So do you think that the culture, the kind of like where you're from, the Silicon Valley, that being in amongst that kind of culture of innovation and trying and failing actually equipped you quite well to deal with those kind of challenges and the challenges of the pandemic? Is that almost like a DNA thing?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, the one gentleman I was referring to, the other sort of thing he would tell me is he'd come into my office and he'd ask me a couple questions, and then I'd tell him all my problems. I was a kind of young executive, and I got this problem, this problem, this problem. And then it's actually, I was a Brit, and he would say, "CORTELYou, water off a duck's back." And then he'd walk away. And I'm a young technologist. I'm like, well, what does that mean? And what it meant is don't worry about it. Just just keep going. Don't feel the weight of the world on your shoulders, and just, kind of live day by day. And I think this idea of clarity and boiling it down to the essence is, that's what people are ultimately about. And, with the pandemic, we're going to take a new look at things, and things are going to be different, more important. And let's understand that.
And presumably, as somebody that studied physics, that kind of first principle element, of which I believe is a physics principle, is about boiling it down and really sort of just looking at the piece by piece. Yeah.
If your problem is getting more and more complicated, the more you work on it, the more complicated it gets. In physics, you're probably going in the wrong direction, right? Because nature is actually pretty straightforward. It's a matter of understanding it, but you just have to what is the essence of the problem. And what I often tell the technical teams is, spend more time on understanding the problem, and then once you understand it, the solution is actually fairly straightforward. Don't just launch into the solution, because you'll probably get it wrong.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for that talk. It was really interesting, optimistic, useful, and helpful. So that's brilliant. So thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to hopefully having you back again in the future. And thanks again, and have a good day.